All right, guys, we're live. So I'm very excited today. I have therapist Lamar Walker here. He is the founder of Mindfulness. Am I saying that correctly? I don't want to get your name wrong. Mindfulness Wellness Center.
Mindful
Tell me.
Work Counseling Services.
There you go. Mindful Works Counseling Services. And I absolutely love the work he's doing. When I got to know him, he's doing couples work, he's doing children's work and individual. And so I wanted him to kind of come on today, talk to us a little bit about Black males, Black men and mental health, a little bit about the dating space, and kind of the work that he is just doing with his practice. He owns his own practice. So if you see our flyer, that his website is on there. So definitely, if you're in need of services, I'm always encouraging you guys, please go look him up. He actually takes adolescents, 12 and older though. And that's something I haven't been found late. I haven't been finding lately. We've been looking for people that take kids, but usually they're an agency, but he has his own practice. And so I really encourage you guys, check out his website, check out what he's doing. And I just want to kind of talk a little bit about, I know one of the things that keeps coming up in some of the groups that I run is this space in which Black men are struggling to kind of find their voice and talk about how they feel in relationships in our community. Can you talk to us a little bit about, even as a therapist, what is it like, or what should we know in trying to kind of amplify the voices of Black men?
Well, I mean, a lot of times there's only a couple of emotions that we're taught as men, happy or angry. You know,
Hmm.
so the sad, the hurt, the confusion, those emotions aren't readily taught, and they're looked down upon um,
Mm.
with society and just in general. And even how we communicate with each other, it's not always, hey brother, I'm sad today. It's, hey, I'm angry or I'm upset. So you find that a lot, and sometimes we don't really understand how to best communicate those other emotions or truly understand those emotions. And we don't really understand what mental health looks like, or that there is an issue with our mental health.
Mm.
We just have the basic idea of make money, provide, and protect. you know
Mm.
so we're just constantly moving, going, making sure that we're making money, we're providing, we're creating some level of protection or stability. And in that process, we're not really looking at, hey, how am I doing mentally? What does mental stability really look like for me? And yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm seeing a lot of, and what's kind of all over the place.
I like that word, mental stability, because I feel like that is something that we don't talk about with men. Like you said, we provide, protect, and that's pretty much where we stick them. That we give them a couple of emotions. We tell them when they're growing up that these are the ones you get. And then when they date, the women say, well, why aren't you able to tell me what you're feeling? And I think you said something important about they don't recognize them. They're not able to really label these emotions. So how do we kind of support men and being able to communicate what they're feeling and not feeling like they're just providers?
Creating that safe space without ridicule,
Hmm.
actually listening and validating when we are sharing things and information. And not kind of judging or kind of lecturing or downing them. You don't want to feel like you're married to, or you're in a relationship with your mother. You
Yeah.
want to have that safe space, somebody that is going to make you, feel comfortable and feel safe, that you can kind of open to. And just a lot of times, just being present and just kind of reciprocating some things, making sure that, um, what I'm finding is, when we look at love languages and stuff, for men, the love language, a lot of them is physical touch and affirmations. That's what I'm seeing. For
Very true.
women, a lot of times it is, gifts or quality time. So if he's out there, busting his butt to make sure that he can work and get things for you, and sharing all these gifts, and also taking out on dates, this, that, and third. So make sure that there's some affirmations there. Say good job. Say, hey, I appreciate you. And,
Gotcha.
and, and the physical touch piece is always, I don't know, too many men are going to turn that down.
You got
So
that's very true. I have seen a lot of that. That is like a like most men, that is like physical touch is it, and words of affirmation too. I think a lot of times there was a guy that said a woman gave him a compliment 5 or 6 years ago. And
mhm,
that stuck with him to this day because they don't get compliments. And I thought, man, have we done that horrible of a job not telling men that we appreciate them, not giving them compliments that somebody gives you one almost half a decade ago? And it sticks with you because you don't ever get one again.
yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
And
But
then you
then,
said something about ridicule. So how do we, because we sometimes, I know as women, we can sometimes teeter in this space of wanting things done, not really kind of nagging. The joke in my house is I'll say like, quit nicking at me. And they're like, oh, okay, mom is, but what ridicule, what does that really look like in terms of, because I think we think like really high malice, right? You're trying to bring somebody down. But I don't think that that's what men mean when they say, "Hey, you're ridiculing me." What does that look like when you're saying, "Hey, I need no judgment here." You're kind of ridiculing me. What does that look like in terms of when it's kind of given?
well, sometimes it's about communication, effective communication, and it's on both ends. That's what I see and as I'm working with couples. It's just how you communicate and making sure you're communicating effectively.
Mm,
So, ridicule or feeling like you're being ridiculed can just simply mean that there's more of an aggressive style of communication that's present.
mhm,
So, there's several different patterns you may see. So women a lot of times will hold things in, and I mean both will hold things in
mhm.
and not say anything and hold it in, hold it in, hold it in. Like, hey, you tell him to I don't know, fix a light bulb, right? And you
Yep.
said it one time, but then you're like, I'm not gonna say it again. He should know to do it, and there's other things that you may have said or mentioned or kind of like on a slide, and he didn't do it. So
Like it's piling up.
in your head, it's piling up. But you're
Mhm.
not going to say anything, one, because you don't want to start an argument. And two, the thought is, I've said this before. So I shouldn't have to say it again. Then what
Uh-huh.
eventually happens is that balloon pops. And then you get aggressive communication. Now, the aggressive communication is really gives the message that you're going to listen to me now. You're going to hear what I have to say. Whereas
Mhm.
before, the passive, when I'm not saying anything, everything keeps going along, and the other person is not knowing that there's really a problem. But the
Right.
aggressive communication, the thing that makes it aggressive is not always the yelling or the cursing. It's just simply saying "you." So when you're putting
Mm,
the word "you" in front of the sentence, the other person is automatically going to get defensive. You
right.
should have did this. You should have did that. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. You. Then the other thing that becomes a problem is when there's a laundry list. So
Oh
if
yeah.
there's an issue, you should address the issue when there's an issue, not wait until there's like a bunch of issues and you give them all at once. And now, whoever it is that you're coming towards is going to feel defensive. Now you have a real intense argument. You know, um, as men, we don't like to feel vulnerable or feel attacked, and I don't think too much anybody does. So
Yeah.
that natural response is that defense, like, hey, you're not gonna talk to me like that, and then you have that pattern, the constant pattern. So better assertive, open communication is important.
I think that what you said was important, that men don't like to feel attacked because sometimes we push more on them to take it, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of times because women are women, we're not expected to take as much in that sense. We're expected to, people will be gentle with us. They're not going to holler. They're not going to hit us, right? But because men are men, they can just take it. And we just keep pounding them until they explode. And then it's like, oh, he wasn't supposed to do that. He's a man. And it's like, well, at what point are we going to stop kind of pounding them? So it sounds like you're saying effective communication, assertive. We're not holding things in. I like that laundry list because that's what it becomes, right? You hold it in and hold it in and hold it in. And then I always say you're building a case. If you don't talk right then about what's going on, all you're doing is building a case for when you finally, the balloon pops. And then there you are having these aggressive conversations when you could have solved it with more assertive communication. And it really had these open conversations. So in relationships, how do we keep this conversation going? We don't want to argue. Sometimes we're letting things slide because it seems to keep everything running. So when we're in these relationships, how do we have more effective communication so that we're not holding things in, but we're also talking to each other about our needs?
So it's just regular check-ins.
Mm,
Just make you don't want to go like days and excuse me and constant not talking, but just check-ins. Like, at the end of the day, like, hey, how was your day? How are we? What's going on with us?
mm,
Having those relationship goals and just kind of identifying what's going on within a relationship and just constant communication. Like, hey, how's things going? Also, if you're feeling like you're not being heard or the conversation is becoming too aggressive or whatever, call a timeout. Like, because what's said can't be unsaid.
that's true.
So, and the conversation about having a timeout needs to be had prior to the conflict. So you can't get in a conflict and be like, "Oh, timeout." No, you're gonna listen to it.
I'm done.
Whoa,
I'm walking away.
whoa, no. So you need to say, "Hey, we need a safe word." I don't know what it is, pineapples, whatever. We need a safe word when things get a little too heated. And then the rule of thumb is, so it's not of avoiding the conversations. The rule of thumb is whoever calls the timeout needs to identify when you're coming back to the conversation. And I tell couples all the time, don't go 24 hours, without talking or discussing about something. Even if you're close to that 24-hour marker, just keep doing the timeouts if you have to. Every
Gotcha.
15 minutes, we're gonna come back. Somehow we're gonna figure out how to listen to each other and get through this. Somehow. We're just gonna
Yeah.
keep going until we get this right. Um, if you can, and the old folks used to say, don't go to bed mad. So if you can
Yeah.
help it, don't go to bed mad. So hey, if there's an issue, we're gonna talk about it before we go to bed, especially if it's early in the day. You don't. The last thing you want to do is have somebody simmer on a situation.
All day
Um,
long.
and then before you have the conversations, you need to have a conversation with yourself. You know, just don't just
Yeah.
impulsively say, "Hey, I got to talk about this right now." Timing is important. Like your body language, your whole attitude, how you're presenting and coming on, it needs to be. You need to make sure you're straight with that, and you have to identify. Okay, what am I feeling about whatever it is that's happened?
Mhm.
Um, what actually happened? Like what did this person say or do that that
Trigger me or
may
make
have
me
been an
mad.
issue?
Mhm.
Then what's my interpretation of what they did? Because a lot of times, whatever they did is not really the issue, it's your interpretation about it, you know? And then a
That's
solution. So you're not just nagging. Here's a solution. This is what we can possibly do different in the future. And having those things. And then after you present that information, um, be ready to listen to what the other person has to say as it relates to it. So the biggest issue too is not just the communication as far as letting the person know what's going on and doing that effectively, but also taking the time to listen. To be honest, the guys have a big issue with that. I've seen most fellas with issues of listening. The reason being, it makes sense. And once I tell the fellas this, it makes sense. So, and not to be sexist, but women have mastered the practice of venting. When you
Mm,
guys communicate with each other, hey girl, let me tell you about da 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 da, and y'all could sit there all day and talk about whatever and
yeah.
just listen to each other on it. I just need somebody to listen to me and just go. But when men communicate with each other, if there's a problem or an issue and I come to you with it, I want a solution, right? Women don't always want a solution, and I have to tell my fellows this a lot of times. Like you guys don't want a solution.
That
Some
is, I never
they
thought of
want to
that's
be heard.
true though. They don't. Sometimes you just want to get it out. You have the solution. You just want to get it out to somebody because you
Yeah,
don't want to hold it in. And that's true. Men sometimes are like, okay, well, they start trying to fix it. You're like, no, 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 wait. I don't need to fix it. I just need you to hear what I got to say right now so that I can come to I have a solution. I just need to get it out.
yeah,
That's very interesting.
and also be able to identify the emotion. So be able to listen and identify what the person is feeling. So hey, this is what you said to me, and this is how I'm thinking you feel about that. Some real empathy on that part. But
Mm.
men generally we're out of practice for that. We're kind of behind the eight ball with that. If you come to us, we want to fix it. We want to feel like we have something to do here. Not just if we sit around too long listening, now we're thinking about something else. Now it's like, okay, what time does the game come on? Okay, okay, and we're
Like,
just
where are
trying
we
to
going with this? Speed it up.
get to the point. Get to the point. So it takes a lot of practice, and there's differences. There's differences that we have to respect and understand. A lot
Right.
of times, women and men don't understand the differences, and we have that idea of everybody's the same, and it's not. It's not.
I think that's important. Individually, we are not the same. Even if it's male, female, we are not the same. And so I think sometimes I tell people all the time, you're coming into a relationship with your upbringing, their upbringing, and now you're trying to reconcile because your parents each had an upbringing, right? So now you got two, they got two, and you're trying to fix it in the middle and decide how you're going to maneuver throughout the relationship with these preconceived notions for how things go in a relationship, in your life. I think that something you said was really, well, you said a lot that was really important for how to really work through disagreements, because a lot of times we don't set an expectation within ourselves. We don't have a conversation about how we misinterpret or interpret, or if it's really true, what our perspectives and our own feelings are. And that sometimes when we say it's you, instead of saying I really feel frustrated because I just needed more support, that sounds totally different than saying you didn't take out the trash, you didn't do the light bulb, you didn't fix the car, you didn't take the oil. It's like I'm really overwhelmed right now. I have a lot on my plate, and when you told me you were going to take out the trash, I thought you were going to do it. Now the house smells bad, and I'm frustrated because I'm tired, and now I have to do extra work. That
Mhm.
sounds totally different than saying, dude, like you didn't change the light bulb and I tripped over a toy and broke my toe. It's all your fault,
Yeah.
So I think it is important to communicate to yourself what is going on with me first. And I like the idea of the timeouts and then coming back, setting that time limit to say, no, 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 no. And if I need a timeout and having that discussion, right? You can't just say, I'm done. I'm walking away. I'm done with this car. And it's like, wait, whoa, we're in the middle of this. Instead of saying, hey, when we get to a place, having a safe word. I think that was huge because a lot of times when you're in the middle of an argument, Dr. Joy, she wrote the book, the post-traumatic slave syndrome. She talks about the number one predictor of violence is disrespect. And so if you walk away or don't say anything, somebody can feel disrespected. Now they're angry, right? Because they're for sure feeling like you didn't even care about what they had to say or their feelings. They got all these emotions that are kind of boiling up, and you just walked away, didn't say anything. But if you already have it, we have this timeout system, right? We do 15 minutes, we do 20, or I say I need 15, I need 30, and we just keep working at it until we get it right. It gives you one a space to know that the person is going to be in it with you. They're going to fight with you, but also that you don't have to fix it all at one time. That we can come back, analyze if anything got solved, and try at it again.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
really like that. So when we talk about moving into trying to date, like you deal with couples that are already together, but when we're looking for these partners, what kind of things, especially in the online space, that's huge right now. Online dating is like big. We're in the middle of, we don't like to think we are, but we're still kind of in the middle of a pandemic. So people are meeting people online. So when you're trying to date and have these practices and habits for having a healthy relationship and really kind of partnering with somebody individually, what kind of tips would you give people to look for when they're working through these people that they're dating online?
First, you want to make sure you're good. Like
Mm,
some people will jump into other relationships and jump into like they just got out of a relationship and they're trying to find somebody else. So make sure you're good and
mm,
you're balanced and you're okay before you even make an attempt to try to bring somebody else on board in these situations. That's I come across a lot of people that they're working on themselves, but then they want to bring somebody else in. Hey, I just met somebody. Well, I
yeah.
thought we said we were going to wait on that. No, 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 no. They're great. They understand. They understand. Okay, okay. Now you got something else you got to juggle. Now it's
Right.
your own mental health, and now you got to figure out what's going on with this other person and their mental health. So
Agree.
definitely making sure that you're set, you're good, you have a balance, you have dealt with whatever relationships you've had in the past, and you've kind of buried those and those issues before you even step into the dating realm. And making sure, like, okay, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, you have some things in place. Um,
Mhm.
because some people don't have a good balance, and then they lose themselves in these people that they're meeting or attempting to meet, or so what making sure you're the number one rule is making sure you're prepared to what you're about to step into, because there's, like you said, there's other people with different values, with different beliefs, with different whatever, and you're
Yeah.
gonna invite that person into your space and your time. So you need to make sure that you're equipped for that. So just and I think we mentioned a little bit prior to that whole the catfish thing or whatever.
Yes.
But I mean you gotta be so just some things really need common sense. Like sometimes we get so caught up in things that we don't really like, oh, I
Not
love you.
analyzing it kinda, we're just letting it flow
Yeah,
along. Think about that. Have you
yeah.
heard of the Tinder swindler? This guy that had all this money and he
That,
was dating these people and asking for loans, and this dude is like got mega money getting people on Tinder to loan him money. Like that 20,000, $30,000 he was getting. Have you heard of that?
yeah, it's on Netflix or something. I started watching it, but I was like, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for it. Yeah. But I mean, the other point to your point too, some of it is common sense, and some of it is just boundaries. Just making
Yeah.
sure that you know what your boundaries are and you're aware of your boundaries. Not doing too much too soon.
Yeah.
And just making sure that your boundaries aren't too loose and or too rigid. So
Yes.
making sure that you can have a balance to where someone can get to know you and you
Mhm.
can develop something without something just going to just left. And a clear indicator if someone's like crossed your boundaries is if you're feeling guilt and resentment. So
Hmm.
if you're feeling guilted into doing something, then yeah, there's a boundary issue there. Or after you've done it, you're feeling a little resentment or you're feeling like a little tense about it, then there's a boundary issue there. So you want to be clear about what are my boundaries and what are my not necessarily the expectations, but the standards that I have with dating or with people that I want to involve in my life, and just be clear about that and set that out beforehand. Those are some pretty like early conversations you need to have. And by all means, with modern technology, FaceTime, video call, like
Yes. See the
really
person.
see
Yes.
what you're getting yourself into beforehand, because I mean, it's not all about physical, but you got to be able to, at some point in time, be able to look at this person in the face and not crack up laughing or run away scared. So it's important. It's
You're
definitely
I mean, that's true because our I think about my profile picture. That's not how I look on a daily basis. You know what I mean? That's a picture I took because I was getting ready to film for a show. So
important.
I think you should know kind of what you're getting into. I always say that you got to be attracted to that person. Nobody else does, but at least you do. If you're going to date the person, you should be attracted. And I think you said something important that I never thought about. That it's a sign that your boundaries are being crossed if you feel guilt or resentment. I think those are two things we don't talk about, like because moms, we're sometimes guilty of that, right? Guilting folks into doing stuff because you're gonna, hurt your mom, and so we don't think about that is across the boundaries when you're older. If you feel guilty after you've done it, that you
Mhm.
really didn't want to do it, you kind of got talked into it. Then after you did it, and when the case was like, oh man, that was cool. It was like, oh man, I hated that. Like that sucked. Like you know what I mean? That those are two emotions you could have to say, hey, my boundaries have been crossed. I probably need to check in with myself to know I don't want to do that again. And maybe have the conversation with the person you're dating. Because if that happens too many times, probably isn't going to work out. If you're always feeling guilt and resentment because they're talking you into doing stuff, probably isn't a very good fit. So I think those are two emotions I didn't think about when people cross your boundaries that help you check in if your boundaries have been crossed. Because a lot of times people struggle with that. I was in a group of 40,000 women, and when she gave the topic of boundaries, 20,000 of them, 30,000 of them, I think, wanted to talk about boundaries because they didn't have any clue where to start. So I think that is a good check in to say, when I'm feeling kind of these emotions, my boundaries probably have been crossed.
Yeah. And then just also having an idea of what your ideal partner is, like
Oh,
not
yeah.
just physically, but also emotionally, what type of values, what type of just and writing it down, you know, and having it there with you and looking at it as you're dating and say, well, if you start crossing out a lot of things and saying, well, I can kind of let this go, then yeah, you're running into a problem. You're running into a problem. and making sure that it's someone that's a good fit, that kind of like it's no pun intended, but someone that that I learned a long time ago that it's relationships should be like two glasses of water, and
Mm,
both glasses should be full. You know, if you have one that's full and one that's like half full, that full glass is going to be constantly pouring into the other one. And then
mm,
that's going to be an issue. But if they're both full and then at some point someone's lacking a little bit, you can kind of
mhm.
pour into each other without it being an issue.
Oh,
So yeah, if
nice.
you find yourself constantly pouring into someone and trying to, it becomes a project, then yeah,
Yeah.
that's not in the long run, it's not gonna be healthy. It's not gonna be healthy.
I I think that's something important for us women because we tend to take on a lot. And so we think one project in a person is cool. And you're telling us it's not. Like if you start crossing off too many things on the list and well, I can fix, I can change, it's okay, it's okay. It's when you start, it's okay. It's like, in the long run, this is gonna wear you out. Somebody actually had a question for you. They said, in the comments, she said, I'm a wife to a husband who has a high stressful job. He
Mhm.
sees and hears things most don't. How can I ensure that his mental health is okay, especially when his main concern is providing for the family? He may not even recognize he's having a problem. I just want to ask you, and look, nap time is over, I guess. Here comes little people. There's something there. I think it gets pushed back and he keeps moving. So how can she kind of support her husband in like this high stressful job?
Um, make sure that he is taking care of himself. You know,
Mhm.
luckily he's married, so that's one good point. Um,
Yeah.
Men live longer that are married because
Hmm.
women will make sure that you're doing things to make sure that you're okay. So make sure that he is. So the job is stressful. Make sure he's having time for himself. So make sure that he has time to hang out with the fellas. Make sure that he has time to kind of get enough rest. Make sure that he's eating right. Make sure that he's having time to himself. Try to identify whatever hobbies that he may have had before, and make sure that he's
Mhm.
kind of still participating in those hobbies. Um, if there's opportunity to take vacations or time or whatever away, make sure that he's doing that. If he can communicate about the job and what's going on, having a safe space to talk about it. If he can't talk about it with, his partner doesn't feel close enough or able to do that, then having somebody that he can talk to and make sure that that's available. So, like again, the most important thing I tell people is it's about balance. A lot of
Mhm.
times people come to me and they're focused on the mental health issues, but if you're not taking care of everything and you're not focused on all the areas, then it's going to bleed over into the mental health issues. So even if he say this job becomes less stressful and he gets rid of this job for whatever reason, then physically he may not have been taking care of himself prior to. Spiritually he may not have been taking care of himself. Socially there was no social networks that he was taking care of or focusing on or making happen either. So it's just making sure that he has a balance, he's aware of what the balance is, and he's communicating some of these things. He may kind of stuff it away. I'm okay. But you know women have a really good intuition. So if he's not okay, let him know no, I know you're not. I know you're not. Let's talk about it. If or hey, if you don't want to talk about it, let's just come here, and let's just relax together, and hey, why don't you call one of your friends and y'all go hang out together, and I'll take care of the kids today. But yeah, that's my
It's almost
suggestion.
having a list yourself, right? It sounds like you know what he likes, or asking him what his hobbies are, things that if you've been married to somebody a long time, like you can kind of guess, especially if they're vocal before, what
Hmm.
they like, what they don't like. I think that hanging with the friends is important. I had to learn that early as a young wife because we got married in our late 20s. I feel like for millennials, that's still early, like 26. And so my husband finally said, hey, I got to hang out with the dudes because when I hang with them, it gives my mind time to kind of relax. I'm not responsible for them. They're responsible for themselves. When I'm home, I worry about you guys. I want you guys taken care of. But when I'm hanging with them, it kind of gives me time to decompress. And so I think that having friends or understanding that they may need time for friends, for women sometimes it can be a struggle, but I think the balance, like you said, is there, that you kind of know something is wrong, you can kind of catch it early, plan the vacations. I think those things are really, really, really cool, because then you can do some together, some separate, and then you understand how to really support the person. And a high stressful job, I mean, therapy definitely is a high stressful job. So any last tips or things you kind of want to get out there? I know you've given us a lot of information, really, really good things to be able to support each other, Black men in their mental health, to have kind of amplify their voice, but also just support each other in relationships. Some of these things, a lot of these things can go both ways for men and women, to be better listeners, to really engage each other, and how to have disagreements and how to really support each other. Any final tidbits that you have found when people do this or don't do this turns out good or bad?
Get a therapist. Like, I mean, get a therapist. Like, I mean, we go to annual doctor's visits, you know,
Yeah.
we take care of our physical health for the most part. Like, get a therapist, do a check-in, find out, hey, is everything okay? Let me just see. It doesn't hurt, just to find a therapist, it doesn't have to be me, anybody. You can go on psychologytoday.com and put in your zip code, and it'll put you a list of therapists. Just go in and say, hey, you know what? I want to make sure everything is good. I just real quick check, hey, let me tell you about what I got going on, what my goals are, what everything is, and you may need to see them the following week, or you may not need to see them until the next month. Just having those tools or something on standby just in case things get a little bit rough. So, and just kind of help you manage through it. But I mean, I think
I think that's great advice. I am always, as a therapist, I'm always for getting therapy. I think that is, we do annual doctor's visits, and we don't think about mental health in the same way, but it is, do some check-ins, have somebody on. It sounds like even if you're not consistent, maybe you need short term. I'm a therapist that I can go, I mean, I've gone in and out over my lifetime, and they even tell us as therapists, you need a therapist because you intake so much. So I think that is something that really, in the community, getting a therapist, getting somebody to help you. There's Psychology Today. There's therapy for Black girls. There's one for Black men, but I can't think of what it is. And then I'll find it and put it in the description, because I think it's really important. A lot of Black men would come to me and say, hey, I'm looking for a therapist. I'm looking for a therapist that looks like me. Do you know them? And I only had a couple. What's interesting is, because I have started to purposely see who male therapists are, I feel like I know more than most. But at the agency that I used to work for, I remember if there were hundreds of employees, I say on our Tuesdays, we'd have all staff, probably 100 to 125 employees at all staff. Probably 10 were men. And a lot of them were just CSIs. They weren't exactly therapists. They were the community support people. So even the people that got the master's, the doctorate in therapy, they were even less sometimes. So I think that it's important for us to be in this space, but also that if you are struggling, if you have something to go on, find a therapist. And it is a process, because I've seen people try to find a therapist. They have given up. It is a process. Try them out, have the conversation with your therapist. A lot of times we're open to you saying, this isn't a good fit, this is a good fit. We'll refer you out. They tell us all the time, if you're not capable, refer people out. If you feel like that therapist isn't a fit, have the open conversation. We're not scared of feedback. We have definitely trained to take it and give it. So I think find a therapist and don't give up. Do not give up and finding a therapist. I had a friend that kind of went, and they were like, I think I'm good. I'm like, no, you just need a different therapist. Like, you need more person-centered. There's lots of modalities. And you specialize in CBT, right?
I do CBT. I do, well, that's my specialty, CBT, but a lot of times solution focused, and also some systemic things as well. But yeah, when I use the CBT, it's really kind of blended in with the solution focus. Like, I tell my clients, like, and they like it, for the most part. But I'm a great listener,
Mhm.
but we're gonna listen, we're gonna evaluate, and then we're gonna figure out how we're gonna fix this. So I'm not the guy that we just sit there the whole time, the whole session, and we're just going the whole session without trying to figure out some real solutions and some real goals and homework and what's gonna happen next. So But yeah, it's a combination of CBT and solution focus in both ends.
And I do like the fact we always talk about relationship goals. That seems to be the buzzword, but you literally said in your relationship, you should have goals, not, oh, Will and Jada, they're doing this goals. It's literally, what do we want out of our relationship? What do we want our relationship to look like? Like, what are the goals you are literally setting for your relationship? And that seems to be something that you communicate about, is setting goals personally. When you're arguing, when you're not arguing, what does this look like in your life? I think that's really important. So solution focus, I think those things work really well, especially in couples, because it teaches you how to work through these things outside of therapy. It gives you something that you can actively do when you're away from your therapist and bring back and talk about how it's working. So I think it's really applicable to life and how we move. So all right, everybody has confessed something. Do you have it? It could be silly or it could be deep. I mean, at this point, you're a therapist, so you know. What is your confession?
A confession about what? Like just
Anything.
a general confession?
Yes, a general confession.
Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
You know, this is the one part I think, because I didn't do the Calendly with you, because it says, what is your confession? I forgot to tell you that everybody confesses something, and it can be silly. My roommate got me, and she was one of my first people. She got me by confessing something we did in college. And the last therapist, he actually said, you know, his confession was just that he was selfish in previous relationships. So it could be something funny, it could be something simple. It's up to you. It could be your favorite food or a food that you don't like.
No. I don't know. Okay, let me think. Confession. Something silly. Something. I like chocolate. I really like chocolate. Um, and I like Swedish fish. Like my daughter for Valentine's Day, she got me like these little bags of Swedish fish, and then the big bag of Swedish fish. So, like yeah, like it'll be quick. Like and chocolate. Like I'll put it in the freezer and I'll eat chocolate, like just regular chocolate, Hershey's and Swedish fish. Like that's, you give me that, I'm good. You know, I was just
So like you're like Swedish, like bags, like she could give you a big bag and it's gone by the end of the day kind of Swedish fish eater.
Matter of fact, yeah, she just bought it for Valentine's Day, and I got rid of all the little bags. There's the little bags, and then there's a big bag, and it's like it's halfway done. Like I was
It's
watching.
gone already.
Yeah, I was up watching what is it, Bel Air, which was really good. I was up watching Bel Air,
Yes.
and I was eating those things, and then I looked this morning, I was like, ooh,
Like popcorn.
I put a dent in those. You know, I put a real dent in those. So yeah, I got a sweet tooth. I got a sweet tooth. Candy, ice cream, cake, cookies. Yeah, that's sweet tooth. Yeah, that's my
Go ahead. You said what?
yeah, that's my confession.
Chocolate and Swedish fish. Got and lots of it. Got you. I mean, that we will definitely take it, because a sweet tooth, people don't realize, like that is like when people don't eat Swedish fish. They eat them in my house. I don't like them. I feel like they taste like nothing. So the fact that you love them and you're like eating bags of them, I think is kind of hilarious. So, and your daughter was so sweet to get you your favorite candy, it sounds like, on Valentine's Day. Well, we definitely appreciate you coming on, giving us some phenomenal tips for how we could really interact with each other better, supporting Black men in their mental health and as well as our own, and really setting some healthy standards and habits within the relationships we're building, so that we have kind of an idea of what we want, where we're going, and how to create this healthy pattern of communicating within the relationship. So we definitely appreciate you coming on the show. So next week, guys, I have Mr. Pound for Pound himself. That is my husband. He does a sports podcast, and I said, you want to come in the middle of the day? He's looking at me like, yeah, right. Like, no, we got to put the kids down and we'll come at night. So this next week, it'll be in the evening because I have my husband on. And the week after that, in March, we're doing we're called Next Up, and it's going to be an adult career day. We're talking careers, how nutrition, wellness, and just overall how to take care of ourselves in the month of March. So guys, thank you so much for joining me and therapist Lamar, and we will see you next time.